Hello, I have my serger set up for a 2 needle cover stitch. And I'm using I want a narrow cover stitch, so I'm using needles C2 and C3. You could use 1 and 2, whatever works best for you. Remember that when you first thread the serger up for cover stitch, the first time those needles go down, they should be on fabric. You don't want to try to chain on and off like you would with your overlock. Always you want to start on fabric. After you've done your initial pass through, you're fine chaining off, but to begin with, start on fabric. So that was what this piece was, to make sure that my machine was tension was good and everything was set up right. I then cut a piece of scrap, the size that I'm going to use to make the ties, and I wanted this scrap piece so that I could make sure that I had my double fold bias binder set in the right position. I'm using my clear foot just simply because it's easier to see what's going on underneath. And I took a Sharpie and I used it on the notches that show me where my needles are, just to make them a little easier to see. So I have a piece of, I'm using the 36 millimeter double fold bias binder, so I cut my fabric strip 1 3/8 inches wide. I've also cut a point, and this is to put it into the machine. This point for me serves 2 purposes. First, it makes it easier to get it into the binder, and second, I want this point right in the middle because I want to make sure that I'm feeding the fabric on grain. And so I can pull this point and coax the fabric through the binder on grain. If you're off grain, it'll sew right off the edge, and that we don't want. So I'm going to, with the wrong side facing me, I'm going to feed this fabric into the binder, and it will start coming out the end here any minute now. There. It's the person behind the tweezers, not the tweezers that are the problem. There we go. So now I'm going to grab that point, lift my foot, and pull this back so that it's really close to the needles. And I can start sewing at this point. Now, I needed to know about where I should start feeding the face mask in. So I measured from here to here and got figured, and it was about 1.5 inches. So I gave myself a center line mark, and I'm going to watch for that mark to hit right there. And I actually have my mark on the wrong side, so I'm going to give it a different one. This one I can see, the other one I wouldn't be able to. And when that mark gets to about right here, that's when I'm going to feed the mask into it. Now, I had heard somewhere that these that the ties should be about 30 inches long. I had a piece of fabric that was about 36 inches, and I'm using straight grain. So I figured better too long than too short, and so I cut mine that length. Okay, now my mark is just about there. So now I'm going to feed this in. And I have my folds still pinned. That's just so that when they go into the binder, they don't come unfolded. I'm not using my knife, so I don't have to worry so much about the machine, but I do have to worry about the needles. So now this binder just makes this super fast and super easy. Now when you get to the end, and that's also why having a little extra length will not hurt, because you may want to trim a little bit off on the ends. Okay. There, done deal. Quick and easy, and makes makes a nice set of ties. I tested it on Terry. It was long enough to get around his big head, so I'm thinking it should work for anyone else.